podcast. I'm Amanda Poole-Walsh, founder of Astrology Hub and your host for our flagship show. We explore the many ways astrology can support you in your relationships, career, health, and personal growth. Thanks for tuning in. Ooh, hi everybody. It's so great to be here with you. Today, we have a very special show planned for you. We're going to be doing an extension of our 2024 forecast event that we did last week because there were some very important things that we didn't get to cover. So today, we're going to be talking about big Jupiter transits of 2024, including the Jupiter-Saturn squares, Pluto square Jupiter, and Jupiter in Gemini. So Jupiter moving into Gemini. Basically, all of Jupiter's movements and angles of 2024 with one of our inner circle astrologers for next year, Christopher Renstrom, who you all know and love. And so if you are somebody who loves getting a glimpse of the energies ahead so you can prepare yourself, body, mind, and spirit, and also make your plans. If you are someone who loves to see how these movements of energies will affect you personally, you're going to want to make sure and stay till the end because Christopher's going to do Jupiter in Gemini through the signs. So you're going to get to go through the Zodiac and see some of the main themes for your Zodiac sign. And for those of you who don't know him, Christopher Renstrom is an astrologer who is widely known for his astrological storytelling, his knowledge of history and myth, and his ability to weave these things together to give you a deeper, more soulful understanding of astrological archetypes and how they are alive and moving in your life. So, Christopher, welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast. It is so great to have you here, as always.
I love it when we get to visit together. It's such a wonderful thing. And thank you for inviting me on. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. Okay, so let me ask you this one question. Why are you excited to talk about Jupiter's dance next year?
Because I think it's going to be a great lifter for everyone, and we could use it. Jupiter is in an air sign, and so it's going to be like literally a breath of fresh air that's coming into everyone's lives once it begins its tenure in Gemini on May 25th of 2024. And so I think it's something that we could all very much use right now. Personally, I think it'd be nice if Jupiter got to Gemini a little sooner.
Hurry up.
But Gemini is an air sign and Jupiter is a sky god in Greece. And so Jupiter and Gemini is going to be a lovely, lovely breath of fresh air.
Oof, that is really good to hear. And so we'll be going into lots of the specifics and nuances of that in just a second. A little bit more about Christopher. He's published some awesome books. Two of those are The Cosmic Calendar and Ruling Planets for Unruly Times. And he also did courses with us based on those books. So if you want to check out those courses, we'll drop the links in the chat. We'll put them in the show notes, but they really help to bring his books and his writing to life in a really experiential way. And he's also our weekly horoscope columnist. So if you love Christopher and you love his approach, you get to have him in your inbox every week, going through the signs and how the energies of the week are going to be alive for your sun and rising sign. If you are not already signed up for his horoscope column, go to astrologyhub.com/horoscope and make sure you get on that list. That's totally free. Finally, before we go into the episode, I want to make sure that you know that our Inner Circle membership is in its very limited time promotional period right now. It's almost over, but you can hop into our monthly membership right now where you get to learn from Christopher and many other master astrologers every single month. And you can get in right now and lock in a 45% discount on that monthly rate. Or if you go with an annual option, you can lock in not only 45% off, but also 2 months free. So it is really the home for curious newbies, devoted students, and anyone looking to learn astrology consciously navigate their path ahead and transform their lives in the process. So like I said, Christopher is an upcoming teacher in the Inner Circle in 2024. And so by being here today, you're getting a taste of the quality of the teachers and the energy of this community. So any Inner Circle members who are here, please say hello in the chat. If you want to share what you love about being an Inner Circle member, that would be awesome. And again, there's only a few more days left for our annual promotional period. And in this promotional period, you're also going to get bonuses worth over $400. Wow. So lots of different mastery classes, an electional astrology report where we talk about magical dates of 2024. You're getting all kinds of cool stuff. So go check it out at astrologyhub.com/inner circle to learn more and join us today. We'd love to see you on the inside. Okay. So, Christopher.
Yes.
Which Jupiter movement should we start with? Like which one makes logical sense for us to like, let's dive into the stream right here. Is it?
Well, probably Jupiter entering Gemini, right?
All right. So let's talk about that. So talk about that like from a big picture perspective, and then we'll go through the signs at the end of the episode.
Yeah, because then we can sort of set it up and then bring it all together like that.
Yes, you're so good at that. That is what you do every week so well. You set it up and bring it all together at the end.
Well, it feels sometimes like Snoopy at his typewriter, but yes, that is what we aim to do. Jupiter, the first thing we need to know about Jupiter is that it spends really pretty much, for the most part, 1 year in each of the zodiac signs. Okay, so everyone gets a year of Jupiter blessings, which is wonderful. Jupiter is the planet of good fortune and higher purpose. So when Jupiter is moving through your sign, for instance, you will experience good fortune coming into your life. And with that good fortune, hopefully will come a rising of consciousness and even of moral obligation to yourself and to others. I love Jupiter. It's a benefic, and it's not just that it brings good things. I mean, both benefics bring good things. Benefics, by the way, are Venus and Jupiter in an astrological chart, and they bring good things through other people. Okay, so these are not planets that are really connected to like, I've got to do this by myself, or, you know, like maybe one day someone will notice me, you know. No, these are planets that are sort of like, hey, how you doing? Knocking on the door and like, you know, you want to come out and join us? Do you want to come and play? Do you want to come and be part of, you know, this thing that we're getting together? So there's a very welcoming, inviting energy to both Jupiter and Venus, but Jupiter is pretty much like the great inviter. Jupiter's the great welcomer. Okay, so when Jupiter is going through your sign, it's really what you'll experience. If you think of like a sailboat, it's like the wind has risen, your sails are open, and the wind has filled the sails, and it's moving your boat forward. Okay, it's really the way that I like to talk about Jupiter and the effect that it has when it's passing through your sign. And so on May 25th of 2024, Jupiter will enter the harried sign of Gemini. Okay, and this is something that I think Geminis are going to enjoy quite a bit. Not only will there be a feeling like things don't have to be so hard and so difficult, such a headache, right? But it will be this feeling that things are really coming together as Jupiter enters your sign. Gemini is really a lovely sign. It's the first of the earth signs, of the air signs, excuse me. The air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So these are signs that are very much, their focus is very much on relationships. It's how people get along with each other. Gemini is siblings. You know, our first relationships when we're growing up are with a sibling. If we didn't have a sibling, then it's a next door neighbor or a playmate or something like that, you know, so a peer, a kid that's pretty much our age. And so this is where the idea of twinning and sibling relations comes from. It comes from the zodiac sign of Gemini. And it's a lovely sign because in a lot of psychology books, for instance, like Freud goes on about this forever. Okay, it's just, you know, the primary relationships are with the father and the mother, and you know, Oedipal complexes and all these sorts of things, and this is going to set the stage and the patterning for the rest of the life or things like that. I don't want to contradict Ziggy, but in the work that I've done over the decades, I find actually the primary relationships are the ones formed in childhood with other children, with other people who are of the same age. So it's going to be a brother or sister, sibling, or it's going to be friends. And so that experience of peers is something that's very important. It's very much wrapped up in the third house in the astrological chart. That experience with peers is very character forming for you. Learning how to win and lose, you learn with peers, with other playmates, and what kind of a winner or loser are you? When you win, are you like, yay, I won? And is everyone like, oh yeah, you won? Or are you like, I won and you didn't, you little, how do you win? Do you win gracefully or do you win horribly? And the same thing could be with losing. How do you lose? Or are you kind of like, oh, I wasn't so good in that great game? And they're like, no, you weren't, but you know what? We could play again. Okay, let's. Okay, that's a good loser. Or you could be like, I lost. I hate you, people. I never want to see you again. Okay, so it can be that. So all of these interactions, these interchanges we have with peers, with children our own age, when we are a child, these really go on to influence and inspire the way that we're going to interact when we get older. Is our idea of building a company going to be like squashing everyone under our feet? Or is it going to be sort of like, okay, it's your turn to shine or to bring something to this team or to this group effort? Do you treat a customer or client like family, like there's someone really special? Or do you treat them like a demographic, sort of like, hi, no, that's it. Oh, wait, you're not interested in buying that? Okay, next. These are the things that we learn in these early stages, in these early ages. This is why the third house is so important in an astrological chart, because it's really going to tell you, how the fourth house can sort of tell you about the home that you were raised in. The third house is really going to tell you about your childhood. Okay, it's really going to tell you about how you got along with the other kids. And was that a scarring experience? Was that a triumphant experience? Was that, a lovely experience? I wish I could go back to being 7 again, or was it, wonderful? My best years of my life were when I had a tricycle, that sort of a thing. And these are the things that are going to be coming through with Jupiter and Gemini. It's going to be this idea of friending again. It's going to be this idea of talking to people one-on-one, not as huge masses or giant, enormous demographics or anything like that. It's talking to people one-on-one, being friendly with people because someone helped you out, you're going to help them out. And so this is what Jupiter really teaches as a planet. Good begets good with Jupiter, okay? So Jupiter's idea is that if something good is done for you, you pass it on to someone else. Okay, I think there was a film from a book a while ago called Pay It Forward. You pay it forward, and you don't pay it forward with an expectation of being praised. You pay it forward because someone did you a good deed, and so you're going to do someone else a good deed. Maybe someone you don't even know. So this kind of bonhomie, okay, this getting along with everyone, it's a very Jupiter idea, but then you put it in a zodiac sign like Gemini, and that tells us where it's playing out, and it's going to play out with siblings, it's going to play out with friends, it's going to play out with neighbors, it's going to play out with the people you talk to every day. and even if you're involved in sort of power relationships with clients and bosses and CEOs and things like that, there's going to be a friendly quality that comes out, a collaborative quality that comes out. And I just think it's people getting to know one another again. We've spent so many years like arguing or yelling or whatever at one another. And Jupiter and Gemini is just, it introduces humor. It introduces play, which is such an important word with Gemini. It breaks the ice and it gets people sort of chumming around again.
Wow, Christopher. I have to say that those words are so welcome right now. I am craving that, like that one-on-one, that real like playful, personal. I think I literally said the other day, I'm so excited to someday have a place where I can record these podcasts where like, Christopher, you and I could go to lunch afterwards.
I
Like,
know.
best thing ever.
Or take the podcast to lunch with us.
Yes, exactly. And invite everybody to watch the recordings as we're doing them. That I'm craving that like at a deep soul level. So this, yeah, it's almost like sensing the Jupiter and Gemini movement already. And like, okay, let's go, let's do it. Let's figure out a way to have more of that personal interaction.
Yeah.
So this is great. So I have a question. You're
Sure.
saying that if Gemini is your sun sign, this is going to be a welcome relief for you. Is it also if you have Jupiter and Gemini in your natal chart, is this also a particularly like cozy, comfy place for you this next year?
Well, where you want to look in a natal chart is where Gemini is. Okay. And so you want to see what house Gemini is associated with. Is Gemini in the house of finances? Is Gemini in the 8th house? Is Gemini in, the frolicking 9th house? I mean, where does Gemini show up? And this is where Jupiter is basically, it's almost like imagine a planet as someone walking with a lantern, and you've got a house and you've got these beautiful rice paper windows or something. And this lantern goes past, that's the planet going through the house. You see this light going past. So where does it show up? Where does the planet show up? You look for the house that Gemini is ruled by the zodiac sign of Gemini in your chart.
Perfect. Okay. We're going to go through all of the placements at the end of the episode. So make sure you stay and or come back if you have to leave for a little bit. Make sure you come back so you can hear how it's going to affect you personally. I love what you just said about the lantern I always think of it as a spotlight. Like there's a spotlight, but yours is much more beautiful. I like that image a lot. All right. So let's talk about, well, I'll give you the option to either talk about Jupiter-Saturn square next or the Pluto square Jupiter. Which one would you like to go with?
Well, first of all, it's a trine.
Oh,
okay. And it's not a square. Right. And so that's a very good. And
wait, which one's a trine?
The Jupiter trine Pluto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it maybe a lot better, but
it makes it kinder and gentler.
Right. Absolutely.
We could use some trines for everyone who may or may not know this. We have different aspects in astrology: a conjunction, a square, a sextile, an opposition. And these are basically dispositions or attitudes that the planets take up with one another. Conjunction is we're on the same page, and an opposition is we're hopelessly polarized and there's no bridging the gap. Okay, when you have a trine, that means that it's two planets in different signs, but like element. Okay, so if I've got a trine and I'm saying, and Amanda says, okay, Jupiter is going to be trining Pluto. What does that mean? Okay, I know that Jupiter's in Gemini because I've been talking about that. And that's what today's episode is about, right? Is Jupiter in Gemini. So I'm going to be interested in planets that are in the other two air signs. Okay, and the other two air signs, because you get 3 planets per element, or three signs per element. Okay, the other 2 air signs are Libra and Aquarius. So I know that Pluto has entered Aquarius at the end of January. It's maybe January 20th, 25th. I forget the exact day. And so it's there in Aquarius, not moving very fast because it's modern. It's furthest away from the sun. So Jupiter, when it enters Gemini May 25th, on June 2nd, okay, which is roughly maybe about 10-ish days afterwards, on June 2nd, Jupiter forms its first trine to Pluto. Okay, so a trine is a facilitating energy. It's a supportive energy. I really want this to happen. And so the trine comes in and says, let me reach over here, to get this book you can't get and bring it down to you. And here it is. So the trine is there to help you to accomplish or to achieve your end, or to simply help you get to where you want to go. Each aspect in astrology has the character of a planet. A square, which can be very combative, has the characteristics of Mars. Okay. An opposition, which can be polarizing and very, very distant, has the character of Saturn. Trines have the character of Jupiter. Okay. So they're protective and they're supportive. This is these are the 2 elements. These are the 2 ideas with the trine. Okay. Which we could use a lot of trines in the world right now. So with Jupiter entering into Gemini, And forming a trine to Pluto and Aquarius, it's almost like letting a drop fall into a puddle. And then the ripple effect goes further and further and further and further and further. All right. So basically, whatever Pluto in Aquarius is intoning, okay, Jupiter is going to match that harmony, and it's going to effuse. It's going to go out further. I often like to describe Jupiter. You know how you can have a candle in a room, in the dark room, candle in the dark in a room, and you can see like around that candlelight. But if you put that candle in like a storm lamp or a glass lamp, the light diffuses. This is what Jupiter does. It diffuses the light. It diffuses the energy. And so Jupiter forming a trine to Pluto and Aquarius diffuses this. Pluto and Aquarius is very much about how we're all getting along in the world that we're living in. Okay, what would make a good utopian or paradisial or wonderful society to live in? This is the great question of Aquarius. And Pluto is going to be asking this question. What Jupiter does, which is so lovely, is that it takes it down from the podiums. It takes it down from the, well, I think, it takes it down from all of this highfalutin or all this incendiary or all of this, I don't even know who I'm, writing all these horrible things to on the other side of this internet thing. I'm just going to send. It takes it away from all of it. And it's almost as if everyone's going to be transported and sitting face to face with one another. Would you say the things that you can say, from the distance of a keyboard? Would you say it to someone's face if you saw that person? If you saw what that person was really like. So what's lovely about Gemini is that Gemini doesn't tell you what to do. It's not one of those pontificating signs in the Zodiac, and we have some of those. But anyway, Gemini doesn't do that. Gemini's kind of like, okay, you said you always wanted to meet so-and-so. Did you know that I know her? Rihanna, come on over here. Gemini like sits you down with. And so all of a sudden, you go from like, I'll never have to like see this person face to face to you're seeing this person face to face. How is that going to change the way that you relate? How's that going to change the way that you talk? And so this is what Gemini does. It gets rid of the distance, and it makes everything very intimate and very close. And it's much harder, if you're, as Amanda said before, having lunch with someone to continue being so like, opposite in everything. It's much harder if they're, they're pouring you coffee, you're sharing a salad or something like this, and this is the lovely thing about the Jupiter and Gemini. And with that trine, it's going to actually break up or bring down to more accessibility this almost rocketing of insults and things that goes on, and just where people can sit and be with one another one-on-one.
I love that with the Aquarian flavor. So it's like, is the microcosm of my intimate engagements with people one-on-one, if we were to, like you said, have this ripple effect, or, have this like diffusion of energy, and let's pretend that this little conversation we're having was amplified and everyone was having this kind of conversation. Is this the kind of world that I want to create or live in or advocate for? Right. So it really is bringing that personal responsibility into this. We have these ideas of what the world could be, but can we actually live those in our one-on-one relationships?
And because it's Gemini, it puts it into action. Right. I mean, a wonderful thing to think of with Jupiter and Gemini is the art of conversation. It's the art of conversation. Talk, listen, discuss, share. It's a conversation. It's something that's friendly. It's not, it's not yelling and screaming at one another. That's not what happens in a conversation. You have a conversation. You discuss topics. You go off on something. You do a fun tangent. I mean, certainly you have one of those friends where it's like, oh, we're supposed to just get together for an hour, but it's going to be like 15. And like,
you are one of those friends for me, Jupiter. I just called you Jupiter. Christopher. I love this. And also, the art of conversation requires a sincere curiosity, which is such a Gemini thing. I mean,
Gemini is always curious. Yeah.
right? I mean, in order to actually have a conversation, you have to be interested in the person that you're having a conversation with, and vice versa, or else it's either totally one-sided, or like you're saying, it's combative, or you're just waiting for the point where you get to say the thing, which is
Exactly.
also not a real conversation. So,
Right. And it's also being sensitive to the person you're talking to. You know, if they're nodding off, okay, bring the monologue to a close. And maybe ask them something about themselves.
right. That is a good call. Yes. Oh my gosh, I love this. So
Maybe we could come up
you're
with
saying,
basic.
yeah, so the Pluto in Aquarius trine Jupiter in Gemini is really gonna bring that lantern into this area of life where
Yeah.
I love that.
And it's going to get people talking. What's nice, there are two other wonderful virtues that come with Gemini as well. Talking and asking questions without knowing what the answers are. Okay, so just putting out the idea and exploring it. Okay, this is one of the great virtues of Gemini. They love to play with an idea, you know, and it's just, and you can see that kid come out when they're playing with an idea. They just love to play with it. And the other virtue of Gemini is debate. Debate isn't yelling at one another. And this is something that, you know, I don't know if you had debate class in high school or anything like that, but this was the wonderful thing. I saw this episode where they were teaching debate to these kids at the school in Harlem. And oh my God, the kids were like 8 and they were like, you know, like a magnificent debaters. I mean, like it was extraordinary how they were doing it. But a debate is you take up one side of an argument, another side of the argument, you have that thing, you argue pro or con. But then what happens is that you switch sides.
Huh. Yeah.
And you now have to come back from the other side. And so it's not about an argument and out shouting someone. It's an argument and having two ideas. You know, I'm going to argue this side, but now we're going to switch and I'm going to argue this other side. You know, and that kind of trying on of an idea, you know, and that kind of like, how do you line up the points, and taking it out of this fury and this yelling and this insulting and this awful thing and turning it into, you know, that's really stimulated my mind. That's really stimulated conversation. I never thought of it like that before. These are the lovely attributes of Gemini.
Wow. We could so use that. I love just all of us taking that as, okay, during that period of time, that is sort of the challenge, the invitation. How often can we do that? How often can we try on the other perspective and go, God, you know, I can kind of see why they're saying that. I understand. I may not agree with it, but I can understand, at least on some level, where they're coming from. I mean, if we had been doing that the last 3 years, like, it would have saved us a lot of angst.
A lot of air, a lot of words, a lot of aggravation at the Thanksgiving table.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. So this is again, the Pluto in Aquarius trine Jupiter in Gemini, and it's happening, you said June 2nd. June 2nd. And then the third one that you wanted to talk about was, and I believe I was right when I wrote down a square, Jupiter-Saturn square.
Right. And that's going to be 2 and 3 because it squares 2 times in 2024.
Okay. So what are the dates of that?
Okay. The first square is going to be August 20th of 2024. And then the second square will be on Christmas Eve of 2024.
Okay. And it'll be really interesting to hear how this configuration has a different flavor. So it's a square, and then it includes Saturn. So tell us how that colors Jupiter and Gemini's experience.
Absolutely. I just have to make a quick note. I'm not going to go into it because it's a whole thing.
Okay.
This is part of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which ancient astrologers use to time cycle changes. Okay. And so we had the first conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in an air sign, starting off the air cycle in December of 2020. It was right before 2021.
I remember
And so
that.
there was a conjunction of the Jupiter and Saturn, okay? And now they've moved to a square involving the air and the water. So Jupiter has moved to an air sign, and then it's squaring Saturn. There's going to be an opposition square, and then they can join again in a different air sign. This is the dance that they do. I'm not going to walk you through the choreography because, quite frankly, I'd rather watch Fred and Ginger. Okay, but anyway, but I do feel compelled to point that out. All right.
Well, Christopher, just without going too deep into it, because I know you just said you don't want to. However, does it have flavors of what was happening in December of 2020? Oh God, I don't know if I love that, but
I know, because it's like, aren't we over that yet?
right.
December 2020.
That was a really hard time for basically everybody. So
we all stepped over the threshold to our new age together.
Yes. I feel like we're still stepping. We're like in the process of stepping.
I think we're more like toddlers who are trying to like get up on the chair to balance.
Okay, that's good.
Sort of see. What a square does is that it brings up two competing ideas. Okay. Kind of like that debate I was talking about. They bring up two competing ideas. And so they're either going to stay in conflict with one another, or you have to find a way to work with each of these ideas. Maybe find a way to turn it from something competitive to something collaborative. Okay. So the two ideas that you're working with is a Jupiter in Gemini. Okay. Gemini, as I said, is an air sign. It's very curious. It's very conversational. It's very one-on-one, and it's very, very friendly. All right. And Jupiter is welcoming. Okay. That's pretty much what it does as a planet these days. Saturn is foreboding. Okay, so Saturn doesn't want to be welcomed. It can be more distant. It can be, more suspicious. Like, why are you being so welcoming, Jupiter? But Saturn knows what it's like. Jupiter wants you to be a part of. Okay, it's an integrating planet. It's welcoming, integrating planet. Big tent philosophy. All opinions are welcome here. Okay, whereas Saturn is, I am apart from. Okay, so Jupiter is like, I want you to be a part of this conversation. And Saturn is, I'm apart from this conversation. Okay. And sometimes people are kind of like, well, why are you being so snarky, stinky pants? Why can't you just join everyone or whatever? And Saturn's like, I don't join everyone because, I have reason not to join everyone or something like that. I feel like an outsider. I'm ostracized, or you all bullied me in the 3rd grade and I hate you, even though I showed up at this 50th high school reunion or whatever. So Jupiter is a part of, and Saturn is a part from. And I did a lot of thinking with this one because I was like, how do you explain the Gemini and the Pisces? And I'm going to use an example that I think we're all pretty familiar with. It's a little on the heavy side, but I think it's actually going to really illustrate the point. Jupiter in Gemini is going to be very newsy. It's very like, what's the newest idea, the new technology, the new whatever, like, oh, that's fun. That's, that's okay. So it's driven by curiosity, and it's driven by the next fascinating, interesting, breaking story, if you will, right? So if we think of things like a natural disaster, a shooting, God forbid, something in which misfortune falls upon a people, maybe it's a city or a state or it's a region. Okay. And it's tragic. It's absolutely horrible. Something that we see happen all the time, the way we get this information mostly is the network news will descend upon this area, this place of disaster, and the cameras will show up and they'll have microphones and they'll be like, can you tell us something? And people are like, oh, it was, and so people have a chance to sort of talk about it. And we all view this, and some people say we view it vicariously, but actually I think many of us also view it very empathetically. We're very like, oh, and so what happens is that this tragic event creates a community, okay, around it, okay, where people are like, I can't believe this happens. Where's the GoFundMe? How do I give to something like this? How can I help out? You know, I'm seeing reflected in the tragedy of these people, horrible things that happen in humanity, and we should all pitch in and be there for one another. Okay. And so this goes on for like the breaking news. They call it breaking news. It goes on for a day. It goes on for maybe a few days. Maybe it goes on for a week. Okay. Then it's not a story anymore, right? It's not a story anymore. The cameras are like, you know, we feel bad about you or whatever. You know, we're leaving. We've made friends. I'll never talk to you again, but, you know, bye, you know, or it's like, we have another breaking story. It's like a tornado or something. They leave, they go on. And the community that had been so under the spotlight is now like left. Okay. So in some ways that Jupiter and Gemini can be kind of like the descending news team. Okay. It wants the information. It's involved. It wants to hear all of these things that, you know, different versions of what's happening or whatever. This is very fresh and everyone's like very much, you know, communing with it. You know, no one's kind of like, oh, you know, and no, they're like communing with it. You know, we're glued to our TVs or our Twitters or social feed or whatever. But then it leaves. And then the people who were focused on are kind of like left, and they're kind of like, well, we're still struggling with this, you know, we're still struggling with this tragedy. We're still struggling, but everyone's gone and left. And maybe the people say, well, something really happened. We have to like change things or whatever. And other people are like, oh, you know what? This tragedy that happened to you, I felt really bad. I gave you a GoFundMe, but that's like 6 months ago. And I don't really want to hear about it anymore. Okay. So Saturn in Pisces is the part that says, it's not okay. We were hurt. We need to do something about this, you know? And the Jupiter in Gemini is, we talked to you about that already, you know, but we have to go on to something new. You have to go on to something new. You know, we have to open up the school again. We have to open up a forest ranger or whatever again, or we need to bring tourism in again or whatever. Like, we're so sorry about the tragedy and we feel so much, but, you know, these things have to get up and going again. You have to get the economy circulating again. You have to get people circulating again. This, you know, and so you can sort of begin to understand that there's two very different views here. You know, there's like, well, I'm not over what happened to me. And then there's like, we all need to be over what happened to you, and we'll remember it and things like that. But we really must go on. Life goes on, you know, come join with us. So there's this kind of friction. And so you may experience in your own life, hopefully not what I used as an example, but you may experience in your own life this feeling of what I would call, with this Jupiter-Saturn square, this feeling of being a conscientious objector. Conscientious objectors, and there's a very long tradition of that in America. I believe it starts with the Quakers, I think as early as the Revolutionary War, are people who will not fight a war, okay? And in the heat of the war, everyone's like, well, you have to pick a side. You have to fight a war. Who are, you know what? You yalla. I don't know. Like, that's from like somewhat, you yalla, you know, being called yellow or whatever, like a coward, you know. And they would be like, no, I'm choosing not to fight this. And when, you know, the drums of war are banging and people are like, no, peace. Everyone's like, oh, you yeller person or peacenik or whatever the term is, you know, and they maybe even laugh and ridicule because you're not going along with everything else. I'm bringing up to you more dramatic, more extreme, maybe even darker versions of this. But to stand apart and say, no, I don't think we should do that. The strength of standing apart and saying, no, I don't think we should do that. This is going to repeat a mistake. We've seen what happens when you retaliate in such a way. That's a Saturn and Pisces place, okay? But a Jupiter in Gemini may not have much patience for it. It might even attack it, make fun of it, argue with it. You know, because Jupiter and Gemini is trying to enlist, to get on board. I'm just giving you a very, hopefully an example you can sort of see in your mind, but an example you can apply to different contexts in your life. You may feel yourself in 2024 being on one of these two sides, either the conscientious objector, the person that everyone's like, why can't you just like, get, like move on and be a part of everything. You might feel the apartness of that, the solitariness of that. Okay. Or you might be the Jupiter and Gemini, which is kind of like, if you stay in the dark corner, if you stay depressed, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, there are other people who have gone through this. I'm not trying to devalue your experience, but I'm trying to get you to share it with someone else who's gone through this. Won't you come and be a part of our group or therapy session, or, people against or people for, so so you may find yourself on one or at the other side of this, or you may find yourself struggling, am I enlisting and maybe being a little insensitive with the enlisting, or is the enlisting coming from a good and sincere place? Am I refusing, to be drawn in? Is that coming from a good place, or is that, the stance that I'm taking?
I can feel this one so viscerally right now, Christopher, because it's exactly what's happening on Maui.
Yeah.
There's the people that are like, we need to get tourism back up. We need to get the economy going. We need to get people here. How can we enlist people to come here? And then you have the other people going, whoa, like, no, it is way too early. People are still completely displaced. There's so much pain still. How can we even be thinking about the economy? So, but then you have people that they can't stay here because they don't have jobs anymore because there is no economy. I mean, it's very complex, and it's really challenging to know, like, what is the right thing. And that's when you were just saying, you may find yourself, it's maybe my Gemini moon, because I can really go, oh, wow, I see that. Oh, wow, I see that. I really
yeah.
really see both perspectives, and my heart goes out to both perspectives. There doesn't feel like there's a right answer here, which is probably that nature of the square, right? Like this feeling that there isn't really a clear resolution to this challenge.
Well, the beauty of Gemini is it's not interested in the answers. It's interested in the questions. That's the beautiful thing about Gemini. And whenever you are dealing with a Jupiter-Saturn square, you are dealing with a moral dilemma, an ethical quandary. That's what those two planets and squares always bring out. I just don't know what to do. I'm pinned on the horns of a dilemma, and when we're pinned on the horns of a dilemma, we want to get off those horns. They're sharp and they hurt, but actually being pinned on the horns of a dilemma gets us to broaden our thinking, to broaden our perspective and to search for different avenues and different conversations.
Wow. You just helped me. You just helped me with this very specific, I know we're talking about next year and we're talking about everyone collectively, but asking the right questions and being open to a different solution that we're not even maybe thinking about right now. Yeah. That is something. So we can keep that in mind next year when we find ourselves in these situations where it's like, eek, like that doesn't seem great. That doesn't seem great. Or like, I'm clearly on this side or I'm clearly on that side, but I need to understand the other side in order to come up with a resolution that can work.
It helps the idea of debate, because empathy is a beautiful, lovely thing. But what astrology also teaches us about empathy is that it's connected to an element, water, right? You've got 3 other elements. Okay. So, empathy is wonderful. It can be this sense of like sharing, and it can be this idea of caring. But what can also get caught up in empathy is this agreement or acceptance. And maybe it's not about agreement or acceptance. Maybe it's about when you look at another point of view, looking at another point of view, not sympathizing with it or trying to make it like yours, but actually, if you're standing on home plate, walking on over and standing on first base.
Mm.
Okay, that is not the same place as home plate. Okay, and that's what, for instance, debate can do. You have to go and take that other side, you know. And so it switches. It's something that goes with our bicameral brains. I mean, you switch hemispheres, you know, and so it's a different way of understanding. It's different from empathy. It's not better. It's not worse. It's a different way of understanding, of apprehending, of comprehending.
Okay. We're going to go through the tour through Jupiter and Gemini by sign before we
that part.
Yes. But before we do that, one of the things that you were just describing in terms of that debating and flexibility of mind is something that is so core and central to the way that the inner circle is designed. Because just by being exposed to a different astrological practitioner, a different astrological lens or perspective, we avoid that trap of getting stuck in this is the way to practice astrology, or this is the way to interpret this energy or this transit or this aspect. And it's so valuable. And especially if you can do it at any point in your trajectory with astrology, you will cultivate that flexibility of mind that then enables you to pull on different tools and techniques when you need them, to answer different questions with a different perspective when you need them. And I've seen all of it. And I've experienced it myself, getting trapped in I use this house system because that's what my teacher used. But then getting exposed to another house system and going, oh God, like everything in the chart changes when I go to that other house system. What do I do with that information? And does that mean that the way I was practicing before was wrong or flawed? Am I a fraud? All these things. So you're going to be one of our teachers next year, which is such a gift. And you will be teaching a mastery class. Can you just give us a glimpse into the mastery class that you'll be teaching?
Well, what I wanted to take on, I'm very kind of drawn to moral quandaries nowadays.
Moral quandaries?
Moral quandaries, moral dilemmas. You know?
Yeah.
And kind of doing that flip, that hemispherical flip. And we're all, we all pretty much learn in astrology, good planets are good, bad planets are bad. There's the planets in the light and the planets that are in the shadow. And, this conversation or sometimes war that goes on between them. But I've done a lot of looking at charts and thinking and all those sorts of things, but I wanted to teach a class that kind of like switched the hemispheres a little bit on that idea. And so the first part of the class will be when good planets go bad or good planets gone bad. It's like, what happens when good planets actually are not bringing good things, and maybe are enabling or augmenting, and then of course, if you're going to do that, you have to do the flip, and that's bad planets make good when bad planets make good. And what do the bad planets bring that's actually a good thing that we wouldn't be able to if it weren't there? So I just wanted to sort of play around with that idea and play with different chart signatures and things, and would definitely maybe perhaps in the Q&A we can look at charts and things like that of the people who are participating, and just sort of play around with the labels there, and not getting us to debunk those placements, but to deepen our understanding of those planets.
So good. Okay. So every teacher in the inner circle teaches the members a mastery class. So every month you get a mastery class as well as a lot of other things. But the mastery classes are either sold as standalone classes in our academy for $97, or some of them are never sold. So they truly become inner circle exclusive mastery class teachings. If you love learning from multiple perspectives, if you love using astrology as a guide for personal growth and development, if you would be interested in being immersed in a community where we're having these conversations all the time with each other, where you can actually ask questions to the teachers as they're facilitating their teachings each month, then the inner circle is a great place for you. And right now is absolutely the best time to jump in and try it out. It's right now 45% less than it usually is. And you can jump in, see if it's right for you. There's no contract when you join, so you can try it, but now's the time because you'll get to lock in the best pricing that we offer all year long. So you can go to astrologyhub.com/inner circle, join Christopher and 12 other incredible astrologers next year for a journey. Like, you get to be on a journey every single month. You get to go deeper and deeper and deeper into your astrological learning and knowledge and grow as a person as you do it. So check it out. Again, astrologyhub.com/inner circle. There's just a couple more days of our promotional period.
Wow, so just a couple more days.
Just a couple days. So now is the time. Check it out. All right. And also now is the time to go through the signs. So Jupiter in Gemini through the Zodiac as perceived by the masterful Christopher Renstrom.
Thank you. Push him out in front of that curtain.
Go, Christopher, go. You're on.
Jupiter in Gemini is going to impact different signs differently. Okay. It's going to be wonderful with the air signs. Okay. So well, first of all, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, if you're a Gemini, Jupiter going through your sign is going to be really, really terrific. It's the wind picking up and filling your sail and taking you to those destinations that you want to go to, whether it's like long journey or a point that you want to make or a career transition or another way of living in your life. The wind fills the sail and it propels your ship forward. So that's going to be the big impact with Jupiter in Gemini. What Jupiter's also going to give Gemini is protection. That's one of the functions of the planet. The planet, we know of it as raining riches and benefics and things like that, but the planet also protects. It protects your interests. It also can protect your body. It can protect your thoughts. Okay, so these are things that are connected to Jupiter. So this is going to bring a stronger sense of self to Gemini and a stronger sense of personal conviction, which Geminis can use. They have they like to question and look under the surface of things, but sometimes they can get lost in their own argument, or they don't really have the conviction that they feel. And the Jupiter brings that kind of full chest, that bluster, that a little shot of Sagittarius there in the Gemini. So, and that can be good for zodiac sign like Gemini. So, this sense of really wanting to move forward in my life and to explore the different options and alternatives and variables in my life, this is something that will definitely be going on with Geminis. The other two signs that benefit right off the bat are going to be Libra and Aquarius, okay? Because what Jupiter will bring is people into your life, okay? So, if you're Libra and you've been on the relationship back burner for a while or not really interested in relationships or things like that, Jupiter will bring that into your life. If you're an Aquarius, it will have the same function. When I look at these passages, I always work with solar charts. And so when I refer to a solar chart, a solar chart basically means I'm going to be using your sign in the rising placement and then determining the house from that. So for Aquarius, it could be a very romantic period, what's coming in this year. There may be a concentration on children, arts and entertainment, tournament, the way that you celebrate life, is going to be very, very powerful. And Jupiter will bring in like-minded people or people who will be supporting you in that endeavor, certainly in the area of community or group, which is a province of Aquarius. And as I mentioned before with Libra, the idea of a relationship. Also, what may be going on.
Christopher, real quick, I have to ask this.
Yeah.
Are we looking just at our sun sign or our sun and or rising sign?
Jot down both.
Okay.
Okay. And where I learned that is when we did our episode on, I think, forecasting. A lot of
Yes.
people were saying, hey, this really shows up as rising. So I would do both.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So if you're Gemini sun, take notes. If you're Gemini rising, take notes. If you're Aquarius sun, take notes. If you're Aquarius rising, take notes. That's how
Okay.
you do it.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
And same with Libra, because we've been talking about Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini so far.
Right. And so with Libra, in the solar chart, the Jupiter appears elevated. And so there's going to be a real interest in other people's other communities outside of what you're used to. And so that may be something that you really, get a fascination with. You might also get a fascination with a spiritual path or calling that's different from the one that you've been on. And you may also get involved in community politics on just like a grassroots level. Another idea, be enterprising is perhaps going back to school or updating skill sets, things that are very much of the ninth house. But it's curiosity about ninth house. It's curiosity about different spiritual paths or different views of looking at the world. It's not about doctrine. It's not about, the fast and hard rules. It's just about exploring this path and exploring this idea. And so for Libras, this might conflict with your day-to-day routine. That could be a spiritual discipline that asks you to change the way you eat or to meditate at certain hours or something like that. And so, you might be like, oh, this is really exciting. This is like, I've really found myself. But maybe your spouse or mate or family members are like, why are we eating this? And we used to eat that. Or why are we changing, the way that we do these things? So that might, bring up a bit of conflict. Or maybe at work, you become very conscientious. You're fascinated by a philosophy and you see all this waste or whatever going on at work. And so that might put you in conflict there. With Aquarius, again, that idea of community coming around you can be strong and very welcome for the Aquarian. But Aquarius gets really uncomfortable when there's too much attention that's put on it. So there may be this feeling of stepping forward out of the anonymity and being more of a voice or more of a presence in the community. So the air brings more people into your life, but it's not just like more people to talk to. Whenever you have more people in your life, it gets political, but I'm using political in terms of the concerns of who gets to talk and who listens and how everyone gets along. So, with the infusion of that, and Jupiter is usually associated with the new, so it can be new friends, new neighbors, new co-workers. It can be fun at first because it's fresh, new, and different, but you also have to get to know their body language, their signals, the way that they communicate, what their concerns are. Okay. And so this kind of like infusion of this new energy is going to very much put the air sign skills to the fore. And the air signs enjoy this. So this is something that you'll absolutely, enjoy. What fire signs are going to get out of this is this idea of working with other people. Fire signs aren't into really working with other people. They're into, it was my idea. I scored the touchdown. What did you think of me in that play? Especially Act 2, Scene 4. Didn't that just make you want to cry your eyes out? Okay, so fire signs are very much like, this is my mission, this is my challenge, this is my passion, and so you bring in air, and air does two things. Jupiter is in Gemini, Gemini is an air sign. Air does two things. It inflames the fire, it makes it more so. Whenever you see reports on forest fires and things like this, the big thing that everyone's always worried about is the wind coming in because it propels and moves the fire forward. This is what air does, and it will do it with fire signs. Okay, they'll become even more fiery than they were before. But the Jupiter and Gemini there is there to remind you that there are other people who help you be you. Okay, for Aries, this may bring things up with siblings or with people that you share your life with. Certainly the idea of how you work in a team is going to be affected by Jupiter being in Gemini if you're in Aries. Aries is a team player, but it's kind of like the star quarterback, or it's the tightest tight end, or, it's got this thing that it does that is really, and so the Gemini is going to be like, well, maybe you need to recognize what so-and-so did, or the efforts that so-and-so, put on in. Maybe they, are helping you to perform that piece, or they're helping you to get what you want. And that always can be a little stymieing to Aries, because it's kind of like, I have to rely on someone else, or, deal with someone else's business, so Gemini, Jupiter and Gemini is going to be good things from other people, but also you working or coordinating your efforts with them. With Leo, it's going to be the idea of really recognizing those people who have helped make you. And a lot of times we'll hear about Leo, and it's ruled by the sun, and it's the star, and it's, ego, and all about me, and all these sorts of things. But what we tend to forget about Leo is that it's named after the lion. And the lion is the only one of the big cats that has a family. Okay. We think of Leo pride. Oh, they're full of themselves. But we forget that it's Leo pride, Leo family. Okay. So family is enormously important to a Leo. And this is something that may also be coming out and playing out for Leos. But it's not really your own tribal family, but seeing the family outside of your own family even. Okay. Leo's looking forward to a really, really, like from May 2024 on, there's going to be real elevation energy in Leo's life. Elevation energy. It sounds like a mountain climber. Where friends in high places, people in positions to further you, to promote you, are going to be very, very powerful for Leo. And that's something that begins in that May 2024, and it continues through the year. So there's going to be, praise for Leo, but patrons also kind of expect something in return. Okay. And so Leo's going to have to, remember in the thank you speech to mention the agent and the producer. Okay. It's not just like, my Oscar, I want it. It's like, and I want to thank, Beverly, my agent, Bev. It's the idea of thanking and recognizing people. And this is actually a good practice for Leo with Jupiter that's moving through the Gemini. With Sagittarius, it's the most challenging position because Gemini is the opposite sign. And so Sagittarians may spend that May period through the rest of 2024 feeling very split about things, asking the question, should I stay or should I go? Because Jupiter, if it's in Gemini, is like, oh, go, leave, let's go, And so the Sagittarius is like, but I got things set up in my life or whatever right now. I don't know if I could just like go or leave. So Sagittarians might find themselves in a funny predicament where, they have been the adventurer or whatever, and they've actually come to a point in their life where, things are set up, but, someone else is saying, but you can do so much more, or go or leave all of this. And they may be like fighting for holding on to what they actually have. But that Jupiter in the 7th house will be relationships, of course, but bring a very strong influx of people from other cultures and other places into your life. And of course, that does nothing but delight a Sagittarian. Sagittarius loves different peoples, different cultures than the one that they were raised in. And so that will be really, really exciting. But at the same time, those might bring in questions of affiliation or questions of alliance. Where do they stand with something like that? Because it's the opposite sign. So there is going to be friction in terms of like, do I side with you or do I side with me? And what we were talking about before with Amanda, the idea of the hemisphere switch. Okay, so when we get into the water signs with the Jupiter in Gemini, that's not an easy fit. If I can just sort of like remind you very quickly of the example that I gave you, our community has been hurt. We don't feel like moving on. And air signs are always kind of like, air signs aren't really, air signs aren't get over it. I don't want to communicate that about air signs because they aren't. But it is the nature of air to circulate. okay, to circulate around a room, to meet different people, have different conversations, regardless of whether you're a Gemini, Libra, or an Aquarius, okay? And when you open up your windows or doors, the air fills your house and it circulates, and there's these lovely scents and aromas and things like that. So it is the nature of air to circulate in a very different way than water circulates. You know, water's more following a current or deep dive into things. So you can sort of imagine the friction that can happen. Water signs may feel like, kind of like if you had ever had that incident where it's like, hey, you know, Jimmy, you're, you know, here's a party, you know, everyone likes you. Why don't you go out and make new friends? Or whenever a parent said like, make new friends. And it's like, how do I? Okay, so air signs might find themselves a little bit sort of like, how do I make new friends in a
You
way?
mean water, Christopher? You just said air, but you mean water, right?
Water. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Water signs might be like, you know, how do I make new friends? And they tend to be like shy and retiring. So water signs are going to find their comfort zones played with, you know, and that's kind of the beautiful thing about Gemini. It's like, it's a bit of a prankster. It's kind of like, where's that thing that I left on my table that I'd left for just a moment and now it's not here? And people are like, you know, there's a prankster side to Gemini. And so Gemini in a way is going to be kind of like fooling with water signs to make friends in different places. With Cancer, what's going to be interesting about the Jupiter in Gemini is that the Jupiter in Gemini is going to be doing a lot to change the story that Cancers have told themselves about their life. Okay. Now, I don't mean like, you know, Cancers have been telling themselves a fiction. That's not what I mean at all. The story, the narrative, I guess, is the current way of putting it, that they've told themselves about their life. You know, like, this is what happened. And, you know, my parents got married. I was raised like this. And da, 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 da. Cancers may have experiences in this period of time from May 2024 to the following year. They may have experiences in which the story is being changed. Okay. Now, I'm not saying because someone's like, those weren't your parents at all, you're a changeling. No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is like, maybe you hear a different version, or this is, you know, a father that you found so forbidding. You meet a friend who was best friends with your father, and the friend reveals a side of your father you didn't know. Or maybe it's a mother that you thought could do no wrong, and then there's a friend, you know, that was a rival of hers in high school. It's like, oh, your mother was a real, you know. So, but it's something that's going to sort of change the narrative, change the way that you understood your life so far. It's not going to be this big reveal, and I'm Anastasia, you know. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be like, it's going to get you to look at your past and your history and the expectations you have of yourself that might have been set up from that. It's going to get you to look at it differently. It's not Uranian. It's not a debunker. Okay. It's a Jupiter. It's going to get you to look at it differently. And by looking at it differently, it may actually allow you to explore different things that you didn't feel like you could explore for yourself. So that's something that Cancers are going to be dealing with. Scorpio, Jupiter is going to be appearing in the solar eighth. So it's really going to be changing the people that you rely on and depend on in your life. And it may actually bring people in your life that you feel are more reliable or dependable than the people were before. Or you might look at reliability differently. You know, you might think of it as interreliability or something like that. But Scorpios kind of don't want their 8th houses messed with. It's like Cancers don't want their 12th house messed with, and Scorpios don't want their 8th houses messed with. But there may be changes in finances and financial alliances. And those changes may simply be along the lines, you know, not too dissimilar from Cancer with Jupiter in the solar 12th. It may be along the lines of like, well, okay, that's the way that you've been storing your money or investing or whatever, but you could change it and actually make more or do something different with it. And a Scorpio at first might be like, no, I can't. I've always been with the, Lansley and Lansley firm, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, maybe I should be changing the way that I think about these things or the way that I strategize these things. And so that could either happen financially or again, even emotionally. Things come up not to question in a challenging way, but things come up to maybe change the narrative in a way. And that would get you thinking about, what used to be, I will never change my feelings about, finances or emotional security, or I will never change my feelings about, how I get obsessed with things ever, and it may actually change that and sort of breathe some air into the corners of the Scorpio horoscope, which have always been like hands off because it's always like this, sort of thing. And then finally, with Pisces, the Jupiter may bring about a move or a relocation altogether. And it might have been something that you've been talking about for years, but this may be the period of time when you actually do it. And what may also be connected to this idea of a move or a relocation might even be a return. It might be a return to maybe somewhere you had lived before, or you're given, someone requests you to come back and help, and you do this, but then you find like this place that you were raised or lived in when you were younger has changed a lot and actually might have some great appeal to you. Okay, so there could be a move or relocation or change, but it could also be based on, because the fourth house is our roots, actually going back to where you originated or your family originated. So it doesn't have to just be you. Maybe you were raised on Coney Island, but your family is from, the Ukraine or something like that, or Eastern Europe, and maybe you go back there. There might be an ancestral thing that calls to you, but that could also very, very much be in the cards, and definitely a change in the way that the home is set up for Pisces is there. But again, what I want to say is that this is a Jupiterian change, a Jupiter change in a mutable sign. It's not a Uranian change, so it's not like we're being thrown out of our house of 35 years. It's not going to be like that. It's friendly. It's a friendly, adaptable change. And then finally, when we get into the earth signs, what we are dealing with is something that 2 out of 3 of the earth signs can't stand. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and be forthright about that. Virgo, I'll leave for a second. But the reason I say that is because Taurus and Capricorns don't like options and variables. Okay. Now Amanda is a great exception because she has her moon in Gemini, so she's like, yay, but Taurus and Capricorn for the most part are like variable, option, not interested. Okay, so there's like a fixed way. And so what Jupiter is going to do is going through a financial house for Taurus as well. It's actually going through the way they manage their own finances very powerfully. And so Jupiter's going to be playing around with the rules of the game. It's going to be playing around with the way that you're used to or accustomed to doing things. And some Taurians might be like, oh, this is fun. Why didn't I do this like 10 years ago, sort of thing. And other Taurians might be like, I really don't like this, so there's going to be a sort of coaxing, cajoling quality to this Jupiter, going through finances and getting one to reorganize or to rethink in some way. And that might also apply even to the way of your thinking, rethinking or revisiting a stance or a stand that you've taken. But certainly Jupiter in Gemini is going to bring in a more experimental quality to Taurus. And I think kind of Uranus with its shakeups through the sign has actually gotten Taurus in the mood for that. So, Taurus isn't going to be traumatized by that. It's going to be more kind of like, this is a curious idea, and this might be something that's worth exploring. Capricorns are going to have a little bit of an issue with the Gemini transit. because Jupiter in Gemini is going to introduce all these possible ventures, all these possible projects. I want you to think of it as the golden apple from, from Greek myth, Atalanta's golden apple. That there's another shining object or another golden apple that goes dribbling across the path of the Capricorn. And Capricorns usually have a plan and they stick to it, but this Jupiter and Gemini is going to be like, oh, I can't pass that up. I can't pass that up. I can't pass. Oh, that looks, so Capricorns are kind of become Geminis for a year there. They're going to be like, that's a new idea. That's a bright, shiny object. I really want to know what that's like. And this is a good thing, and I have to just,
You're doing amazing.
okay.
That a little bit ago, like, do you need a glass of water? Like,
I know.
Incredible.
Almost there. But for Capricorns, don't have the cultivated Gemini muscles. Okay. If you're like a Capricorn sun or a Capricorn rising, unless you've got a moon in Gemini, but they don't have the Gemini muscles, which are, okay, that looks fun. I can put this over here. That looks great. I'll get to it eventually. That's more important. I'm going to go with that, then get to this, and then get to that, and then loop back for the other. Okay. So this is the way that Geminis can like juggle different things at the same time. Capricorn's more like, juggles, like they throw the ball up and catch it. And the idea of like throwing the other ball, like they're not fit for that. Okay. So there's going to be a big learning curve with that for Capricorns, where it's like, you kind of have to keep up with all of these things. And you're going to have to change your format or change your game plan. And this is something that might enliven Capricorns or really exasperate or exhaust them, at the same time. But it's a good thing. But the thing to watch out for is, after years of planning and building solidly one thing after another, and now it's kind of like, Black Friday, you go running into the store and grab whatever. Are you going to end up with an armload full of rotten fruit, shining objects that don't go on to become things, the seeds of ideas that never get completion or fulfillment? And so that's going to be the very strong or big challenge for a Capricorn. For Virgos, it's actually a really nice combination that they're going to be experiencing. They're going to be having in the solar chart Jupiter going over the top of their chart. So there could be changes in career tracks, career paths, definitely a change in status. Usually when you have Jupiter at the top, it's like a promotion or an elevation. Now he's going for the water. So that's something to work for. That's something to look for. But Virgos have this idea of working for type of thing. And then when you've got a Jupiter going over the top of the chart, this can be rewards and recognition. We all say that we want rewards and recognition, but some of us can get very anxious about rewards and recognition. Rewards and recognition can suddenly be like, well, do they expect more from me right now? Or am I on top now and then someone's going to throw me over? So these might be things that come out with Virgo, which tends to go for more modest or sometimes even administrative or bureaucratic positions where they're part of the framework or the fabric, but they're not the ones calling the shots. The Jupiter and the Gemini is going to put Virgos into a calling the shots place where they have to take the responsibility, where they get the recognition or they get the heat. So there's going to be this continual feeling from May of 2024 into the following year of like Virgos being asked to step up to the plate. And what does that mean? And being a Virgo, they'll probably be like, I don't know if I have the qualifications or the credentials. I can't possibly do this. And so, Gemini being the sibling sign of Virgo will be like, oh, you got it. Come on, just do it. And Virgo's like, no, worried, perspiring. I don't have credentials. And Gemini's like, do it. Okay. So for Virgos, listen to the coworker, the friend, the family member, the loved one who believes in you more than you believe in yourself and gives you that helpful, push forward. And even if you do a pratfall, at least you made a grand entrance.
Wow. Speaking of grand, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Christopher. Let us know in the chat, was that helpful? I know I was furiously writing down notes when you were speaking about both Capricorn and Aquarius. And then, of course, I'm thinking of all the people in my life and writing down notes for them too. So, Christopher, thank you for that. I know it's like kind of exhausting on some level.
Well, it's kind of fun. It's like a
Good.
on a game show, you know. You're like, hey, you know, what's France?
Yes, and I know that in your early astrologer days, you were doing those kinds of like quick readings for people, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Yes, at different events and everything. Okay, well, it's definitely paying off, and we're so grateful for your ability to just do that. Like, wow, that's just getting. At one point you were speaking, I'm like, it's almost like watching like a gymnast or a dancer or somebody at like the top of their craft, just doing their thing and just being able to admire like that culmination of so many years and so much practice and so much expertise all in one like little moment. So thank you for that, because you were truly masterful. I mean, really, like, wow. And it's so helpful to all of us because you just went through and pulled out some gems. We can really hold on to these things as we look forward to 2024. So thank you for that. I'm so happy you're going to be a teacher with us next year again in the inner circle. If you love Christopher and you didn't take his cosmic calendar class with us, that's another incredible class he did with us. And the planets course. So we did the planets course last year as well. We'll put those links in the chat. We'll put them in the description. And then, of course, he will be one of our teachers next year. So if you want to jump in now, get our best pricing, learn from Christopher and other incredible astrologers too, and practice that. It's a great group. It's a
great group. It's a fantastic group. Yeah.
Yes. So you'll be practicing your flexibility of mind. You'll be practicing all these things. Just a few like highlights, like big picture of what you brought up for us. I started a few things in my notes. So getting used to talking to people one-on-one, really engaging in these more intimate kind of conversations with people, practicing the art of conversation. That's another big thing. It's going to be more friendly and collaborative. People actually getting to know each other. Super nice. A breath of fresh air is another thing I wrote down. And then also this idea of the conscientious objector with the one saying, no, like join the group, be a part of it, share, be with us. So this sort of conflict that we may either find ourselves on one side or the other, or really like not knowing which way to go. Right. And then you went through all the signs and all the specifics. So this has been so fruitful. You have been on for an hour and 21 minutes, Christopher, like on. So thank you. I hope you can go take a nap or something.
I've got a reading.
Oh my goodness. Well, maybe it's a good warm up for that.
Well, it's wonderful because I just can't. I mean, I hope you guys, out there, I hope some of you really, really do pursue an astrological practice. It's just so delightful, when you get to read for someone and just that interchange of stories and experience and being able to like speak a language and watching them take on the language. And it's such a beautiful thing. And that's one of the things that I so love about Astrology Hub is the community and just everyone sort of discovering little nuggets and things like that of astrology together and really talking to one another. It's a beautiful thing. And astrology is a beautiful art form. And yeah.
You know what? Even if you're not going to be an astrologer,
right?
Even just getting to the point where you can be helpful to the people in your life, you can look at the people in your life, their charts, you can help answer the big hard questions that people have. And even if, you don't have to get paid to do that. That could be something you love to do. And I know there's so many people in our audience who would put themselves in that category. There's about 8%. 8% of our inner circle members are like, I'm either a professional or I'm on that track. And then the rest are just like, I just love it. And I want to like be in the conversation as much as possible. So I love what Lieutenant Charlie said. This is so great. And I'm saying yes to this right now. Can we call Christopher Jupiter from now on? I literally had one of those Freudian slip moments. I called you Jupiter and I meant to call you Christopher. I mean, it was so yes, Lieutenant Charlie, I'm in on that one. If Christopher's okay with it. Yes.
I am. I don't know if my ruling planet Saturn is going to be doing that, but
I mean, you definitely have such a Jupiterian energy, so generous.
It's conjunct Saturn almost exactly in my chart.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right. Well, and with the Saturnian flavor, because there's such an organization to your thoughts, there's an organization to the way you present and the way you do your work, but yet it's so generous and so expansive and so Jupiterian. So Saturn's going to be okay with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for being here. It's really fun to get to do these lives every once in a while and really get to engage with you and see your comments and kind of get a glimpse into where you're at. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of our community. If you want to go even deeper in our community, make sure you check out the Inner Circle. We're going to leave you with a little ad for the Inner Circle that the Astrology Hub team has put together. It's beautiful. I think you'll like it. And we're just so grateful that you're here. So thank you, everybody, for making astrology a part of your life. Whether you join the Inner Circle or not, we love to engage with you on the podcast and here on YouTube and Facebook, wherever you tune into us. And just, we're so grateful that you're in our audience, in our community. So, yay. Okay, Christopher, thank you. You're incredible.
It's so great to see you again.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Every day, people around the globe turn to astrology to find inner peace and fulfillment and navigate the tricky and complex world around them, only to be left lost and confused by resources that demand too much of their time, energy, and brain power. And while learning astrology isn't supposed to be simple, it's a whole lot easier when you can tap into the minds of the world's best astrology experts and a community of like-minded souls who are here to support you on your journey. That's where we come in. Welcome to Astrology Hub's Inner Circle, home for curious newbies, devoted enthusiasts, and anyone looking to use astrology to consciously navigate their path ahead and transform their lives. Inner Circle members get exclusive access to new astrologer guides each month, detailed live new moon and full moon forecasts, a new mastery class each month teaching a different astrological technique, monthly live chart demos and Q&A with astrologer guides with a chance to submit your chart to be used as an example. When you sign up during this special enrollment period, you'll also get 3 bonus mastery classes. And to put the cherry on top of the cake, we're offering you the Inner Circle membership at 45% off the cost of the regular price, now through October 20th. If you sign up now, you'll lock in this special price for as long as you are a member. Go to astrologyhub.com/inner circle to learn more and join us today. I really hope that you'll join us on the inside.